We think this is going to be our breakout year, and the action really starts with the 45 patient unblinding that is now just weeks away. We want to see that one or more of the Annamycin arms is trending meaningfully above the control arm of cytarabine. If we see that, we believe we're winning.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining us today for another Virtual Investor What This Means segment. Today we are featuring Moleculin Biotech. My name is Janine Thomas. I am CEO of JTCIR, and I will be the moderator. I am very pleased to be joined by Walter Klemp. He is founder, president, and CEO and chairman of Moleculin. Welcome back, Wally.
Great to be here, Janine. Thanks for inviting me.
Always happy to have you. And before we get started, I just want to inform our audience that Moleculin Bio is listed on NASDAQ and trades under the ticker MBRX. And during today's discussion, the company will be making forward-looking statements, and actual results could differ materially from these forward-looking statements. Some of the factors that could cause actual results to differ materially from these contemplated by such forward-looking statements are discussed in the periodic reports Moleculin files with the Securities and Exchange Commission. These documents are available in the investors section of the company's website and on the Securities and Exchange Commission's website, and we encourage you to review those documents carefully. All right, Wally, we are going to dive right in. So our segment today is focused on your recent news announcing the company is approaching the first interim unblinding of data from your pivotal phase 2b/3 Miracle trial evaluating Annamycin in combination with cytarabine for the treatment of subjects that have been relapsed or refractory to their primary line of treatment for acute myeloid leukemia. So, well, if we could just start with a brief overview of that Miracle study.
Sure, Janine. To start with, Miracle is a phase 3 registration trial for Annamycin. And what that means is that it's an approval trial. That's what makes the interim data readouts here such potentially big inflection points. Now, to put this in perspective, Vyxeos was the last significant improvement in first-line AML therapy involving an anthracycline. And when they announced their data from their phase 3 trial, the stock went from about $1.50 to over $30 per share. Now, based on our phase 2 data and the fact that Annamycin is positioned to potentially become the first true non-cardiotoxic anthracycline, we think our upside is even greater than Vyxeos. Now, this is important as we're seeing more experimental treatments for AML and other cancers that are treated with anthracyclines going from 2 drug combinations to 3 or even more. And some of the most successful of those combinations, they're the ones that are still including an anthracycline. But once you get to 3 or more drugs in combination, toxicities start to mount, and making that makes a non-cardiotoxic anthracycline even more important in our opinion. Now, our phase 3 is what's called an adaptive design because we're testing 2 dose levels of Annamycin at the same time in part A of the trial. That's the first 90 patients, part A of the Miracle trial. Once the optimal dose is selected, we then roll into part B for another 222 patients to complete the trial. And what's so unique about this is that we get 2 early looks at the data, something most phase 3 trials just don't have. Now, the first interim unblinding is at 45 patients. And we've already recruited and treated 45 patients. So we're just waiting for the data to be scrubbed and locked. And we expect to have that unblinded data by sometime next month. Now, by the end of the year, we expect to have another unblinding at the completion of part A. And that should be up to 90 patients.
Very helpful, Wally. So I'm going to ask my next question. As you know, this is a What This Means segment. So what are you expecting from the 45 patient unblinding data, and what will this mean for your overall Miracle study?
In simple terms, we want to see that one or more of the Annamycin arms is trending meaningfully above the control arm of cytarabine. If we see that, we believe we're winning. And it should bode well for the 90 patient unblinding at the completion of part A. And just to give a bit more insight here, we have to keep in mind that 45 patients is a limited sample, especially when there are 3 arms. That's the 2 Annamycin dose levels in combination with cytarabine in comparison to the cytarabine arm alone. And that means there are only about 15 patients per arm, so just one outlier patient can move the response rate by almost 7 percentage points. So what we're looking for here with this first unblinding is a trend. We should see one or both of the Annamycin arms meaningfully outperforming the cytarabine control arm. It's as simple as that. Now, any other details really need to be taken in the context of the small sample size. So they may be informative, but they're not yet going to be statistically significant. By the way, if we do see a strong difference between the two Annamycin dose levels, we have the opportunity to drop one of those arms, and that could make the completion of Part A even faster.
So, Wally, you're heading into what people consider is one of the most important moments in the evolution of Moleculin biotech. So, what gives you confidence for a successful unblinding?
Well, several things, Janine. First, our phase 2 data was just incredibly strong. We saw a 50% complete remission rate and a 60% CRC rate. So that was more than double the performance of any approved second-line therapy. Next, the control arm, cytarabine, historically has shown a 17 to 18% CR rate in big multi-center trials. And remember, it's not Annamycin versus cytarabine in this trial. It's Annamycin plus cytarabine versus cytarabine alone. So we think the deck is really stacked in our favor. At the end of the day, all we need to show for approval is that Annamycin plus cytarabine has a statistically significant increase in CR rate over cytarabine alone.
Well, Wally, you're gearing up for an exciting June, it sounds like. So remind us, what's next for the Miracle study through the end of this year?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, we believe we can complete Part A this year, and that triggers several critical milestones. The big one is unblinding the data at 90 patients. By that time, we could have a lot more than just trend data. We could be bumping up against statistical significance. And we believe that's the point where most observers will conclude that this trial is destined for approval. It's also a point where we expect to file for breakthrough designation. Now, we already have fast track status, and that puts us on an accelerated approval pathway. But breakthrough gets us a higher level of FDA support for driving the NDA toward approval. In fact, the approval rate historically for drugs that have breakthrough designation is over 70%. And finally, once we get to the completion of Part A, it's possible that the data are so strong that it warrants revisiting the structure of Part B. If that's the case, we'll request a Type A meeting with the FDA to discuss the potential for even greater acceleration of our NDA. I think the key message here is that the next 6 months or so for Moleculin will involve the most significant value inflection points in the history of the company. And if you're looking for a frame of reference on this, I really encourage you to look at the history of Celator, that's ticker symbol CPXX, and their drug Vyxeos. We think this is going to be our breakout year, Janine, and the action really starts with the 45 patient unblinding that is now just weeks away.
Well, Wally, I can sense your enthusiasm. I can sense the excitement. Thanks so much. A lot to look forward to. I know a lot of eyeballs will be on Moleculin, so wishing you the best. Can't wait to have you back for an update.
We're super excited and looking forward to it, Janine.
With that, this concludes the Moleculin Biotech What This Means segment, and I'd like to thank Wally Klemp for joining us today. I'd also like to thank our audience for your time and attention. To stay up to date on the company, visit their website, moleculin.com, to sign up for alerts and to also follow their social channels. And to watch a replay of this segment, you can visit virtualinvestorco.com. Thanks, everyone, and wishing you a great rest of your day.